This is The Extra Mile.
Welcome back to The Extra Mile, everybody. I'm Justin, and I'm here with the G5. What's up, George?
Not much.
What's up, brother?
What's up, brother?
And we're here with Caleb in his corner.
Hey,
Caleb's
I don't
corner.
have video today, so you just get to hear my lovely voice.
What? There's no camera on you?
No.
That's blasphemy. Wait, where's the camera? Oh, yeah, it's pointed at our special guest. George introduced our special guest in today's episode.
A special guest is Michael Foster.
Hey, Michael.
What's up?
Not
Thanks
much,
for
man.
having me.
Not much. Yeah, I'm happy you're here. So yeah, this is Michael. I've known a bit for a few years. What's that face, Caleb?
Let's pour the coffee. Do you have coffee in yours,
I feel like we
I
need
don't
coffee.
empty.
You were like, this is Michael.
Thank you.
Did you make
is
this
Michael.
cup?
Yay!
I didn't make that cup, no.
You know, I've always wanted to do that, but then whenever it gets done, like, hey, get your hand in this clay. I'm like, I grew up in that. I'm not doing that. Thank you. So if you're just tuning into the podcast, welcome. We drink coffee. We talk about life. We talk about the Bible. We talk about being a Christian.
Gracias.
Oh, what happened to the cup that changes the face?
I had to bring it back home because
You had guests.
we had guests.
You were
so
hosting.
I had to give them the coffee mug.
You were hosting guests. Okay. Well, anyway, if you're drinking a cup of coffee, this cup's with you. Enjoy. Anyway, welcome to the episode.
Yes. Welcome to the Extra Mile.
We
Happy
go the
you're
extra
here.
mile here.
So, oh my goodness. So
Eventually
you're
we'll stop banging around on the stuff.
yeah. So when I understand, when I think of Michael, I just think of someone who does a lot of things. So maybe I'm wrong, but tennis coach, preacher, photographer, salesman,
You're a
like
photographer?
Yes, yeah.
What?
Do school photography with a company here called West Texas Photography.
Okay.
So, yeah, I work with them, and they're pretty awesome. So,
really.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
That is, yeah. So there you go.
Learn something new.
I think we should make a movie, and we have all this stuff. There you go. Justin's like, no.
I mean, I think it's got legs.
I dream. Okay, allow me to dream.
How did you get into school photography?
Yeah.
well, the owners of it, they started here in Lubbock, and I coached at Kingdom Preparatory Academy, coached tennis there, and their son played for us, and they approached me and said, hey, we're looking for people of, I guess, really character that are going to learn how to take photos. We're not looking for professional photographers. We're going to teach that part, but we just want people of integrity. And so they hired me to do that, and I've been learning with them, been working with them for about 1.5 years now. So,
That's really cool.
Wow.
yeah.
Wow, that was really cool.
So you get to deal with all the snotty-nosed kids. And
Yeah. Yeah, elementary, middle school, and high
Next.
school kids, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
That is cool. Are they a joy to take pictures of?
Generally, yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
Everybody's excited about picture day, and everybody's made up.
there are some kids who are not having it, man. But, I mean, I enjoy it a lot. I think it's a really good opportunity to get to just take pictures, and you're not spending much time with them. You're taking pictures for 15, 20 seconds, and then they're gone. So, but it's a really good thing to be doing for sure.
Really? So do
Yeah.
you take a picture of them even when they're not cooperating?
We have to, yeah.
You have
I
to.
mean,
You're like,
as
"Sorry,
much
kid.
as we can.
This is gonna ruin you. No.
we try to do our best to get them to cooperate because
cool.
it's going in the yearbook,
Right.
and so we want there to be a good picture for the yearbook. But yeah, some kids just aren't having it. It's rare. Most kids.
I
are
think there's an
pretty
SNL
cooperative.
skit in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
probably.
There's a Saturday Night Live skit where it's just sort of these kids that aren't cooperating just sort of like go on. One of my favorite pictures of my daughter is picture day with her school, and she was not having a good day, and so she went off. My kids retreat, and so she retreated away, and she was pouting, and then they literally turned the camera and snapped a picture of her, and she's like
That's
pouty
awesome.
lipped, and
Yeah.
it's my favorite picture of her. It's awesome. But then they got her to calm down and sit back in the thing, and she has a normal day picture. But
Nice.
Yeah, we got to poke that thing in. Anyway. it's
That's
funny.
awesome.
I get in trouble with my family pictures because every single time we take a family picture, my mom's like, Caleb, please just smile. I'm like, okay. And then you see me in the background just like, There was one year that I went all out and we took like a nice family portrait sitting on a dock. And then my mom said, edit the picture for me so that I can go and print it out for our Christmas card picture this year. So I edited the picture of all of us on top of a T-Rex.
That's awesome.
It was beautiful.
Oh, that sounds
And
sick.
she did not use it as a Christmas card.
Oh, what a
I'm
shame.
not better at all.
Yeah, what a shame. That just seems like a very Caleb Stewart Christmas card. I'd want to get that in the mail.
Yeah.
Because you can Photoshop those images now, and I wanted to do my kids, and then I wanted to have my wife and me in those sort of oval halos that are like floating, and I wanted that to be the Christmas card. Rose said, no.
Okay.
We're going to do this other basic thing that all the other women are doing.
Do you guys still do Christmas cards?
No.
No.
Not since COVID.
We have a goal every year to do one.
We had to tighten the belt.
And then we never end up. Well, that's the thing. We looked up one year. We actually took pictures, and then I was like, okay, I'll go print them out and send them to people. And then I looked it up online. I was like, ugh, I don't want to spend $150 to mail out Christmas cards.
Yeah, I
I'll
was
just
thinking that's actually really affordable.
I enjoy getting a Christmas card. I like getting Christmas cards, but I don't feel like I get it near as many when I did growing up.
really.
Yes.
We got in
was
trouble
a lot.
this year
Yeah.
because we moved right before Christmas. And
Really?
so, yeah, my cousin called me and she goes, I could have just walked it over to your house. Like,
Yeah.
she said, I got it back. She called me in early January. She goes, I just got your Christmas card back from the return. They never forwarded it to you. I could have just walked it over there. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're mad.
Let me look at this. Beautiful.
I kind of was busy moving, It took some time. Give me some grace and some love.
Man, you know you're an adult when you move and you remember to change your address, your mailing address.
But we did that anyway.
Yeah. I didn't do that when I first moved as an adult, and I was like, "You do that?" I
just are
thought they just
vagabond.
know that you moved.
I just still pick up all of Julie's mail from Keith and Renee. At some point, we really need to change her address. We still have not done that. We've been married over a year.
Oh, that's so good. So
But
good.
it works itself out eventually. Now, in 10 years, if she's still getting mail, then okay, let's go to the post office and rectify this situation. Why aren't we're completely left you? This is what happens. You were like, I'm a school photographer. I was like, okay, cool. Let's ignore you for the next 45 minutes. Talk amongst
He
ourselves.
is on an episode of The Extra Mile. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
We're extra.
I wanted to know more about how you. Well, I want to know more about that photography stuff at some point, but how you got into preaching.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Really kind of interesting story. Try not to make it too long-winded, but I just growing up was a shy kid. I did not want to answer questions or be reading in front of people at all. And actually my sophomore or junior year, I had to do a little slam poem speech in front of classmates, and it did not go well. My voice was shaky, and I didn't even finish the whole thing because it was so shaky and I was so nervous. Getting up in front of people and speaking was a huge difficulty. I went through a program called Adventures in Missions and started to get more experience speaking in front of people, doing classes and sermons on occasion. And then I went to the field, went to Mexico City as a missionary and got to continue to speak some. And then got back to the States and then kind of stopped it. About a year ago now, I kept thinking I was going to probably go talk to Nate and ask him about trying to learn something about preaching and maybe preach occasionally here, or maybe if he knew another congregation that needed a preacher. But as I was thinking about that, one of my best friends' dad, named David Hankins, was preaching out at Ropesville Church of Christ. And he was just about to move on to a place in the Austin area. I can't remember. I think it's Rockdale, I'm pretty sure. But he was about to move on, and he said, do you want to come out here and kind of do a practice go for the preaching and see if they might want you to be the preacher out here? And so one Sunday evening, I went out there and I preached, and then the next Sunday, I preached morning and evening, and they asked me if I would stay, and so I stayed. One of the things I've been really trying to focus on is being more courageous, because I know that I need to be more courageous, and just we need more courage in this society. And at the time, it was a leap of faith. I was thinking I need to at least try it if God's going to open the door. And so I just kind of jumped out, and I've been doing it since last July. So pretty close to a year now.
Is this full time?
Part-time.
It's part time.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So what do they have you doing?
I teach Sunday morning class, preach Sunday morning, and do a Sunday evening sermon. It's more like a small group. We dive in deeper to what the sermon was about, but have questions, and sometimes we'll just finish out a passage or do a related passage.
Cool. Is that every Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Every Sunday.
that's busy though.
Mhm.
That's pretty busy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. That is really cool. So was there something you felt God was telling you to do, or like?
Yeah, I felt like the Spirit was moving me and nudging me towards trying to step out and do this in some way, shape, or form. And then He opened that door right in my face.
Oh, got
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Oh, I like that.
So I felt like the story about the talents really convicts me.
Yeah.
That we've got to put our talents to use that God gives us instead of burying them. I mean, we've got to be working for the kingdom and serving in some way. And I was like, man, what is my gift? What is my talent? What am I supposed to be doing? And like I said, I kind of felt this nudge to step out and try preaching, see if that might be it.
Mm-hmm.
And He opened the door, and so I'm serving in that way. And if it's not my gift or talent, I'm still serving in the way that God's given me the opportunity to serve. And so, I mean, I feel like I'm growing in it, and it may be a gift and a talent. I don't know. But whatever the case, I'm doing my best to work for the kingdom. So
That's really good. It seems like it is. It's certainly a responsibility for you to go out there and do what God asks you to do.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
well, thank you. Yeah.
That's really great.
What are some takeaways that you've gotten just from the profession of it? I mean, it's a dedication, it's a discipline.
Yeah.
Where you have to say, okay, I mean, even preparing for class, which I do very seldomly now, but it's just sort of this is going to take some time, lots of contemplation, phone calls. Hey, what do you think about this idea? Who do you have people to bounce ideas off of like that? Or do you feel that growth is happening just organically because you're focusing on it?
A little bit of both. I bounce a lot of ideas off my dad.
Mm-hmm.
My dad has really been a role model for me all growing up, constantly studying his Bible and looking deep into the text and into sometimes the archaeological stuff behind it or historical stuff. So he likes to get into the text instead of just kind of reading over the surface of it. And so I contact him a lot. And he also teaches at a church called Westgate Church of Christ in Beaumont. He's an elder there. So like I said, bounce a lot of ideas off him. My Uncle Steve and Uncle Spence talk to a decent amount about Bible class ideas and verses I can put in for different topics. And then other than that, yeah, a lot of it's organic. I really just do a lot of study of the Bible, do some commentary work, and just kind of piece the lesson together for each of them as the week goes on. So, yeah.
That's fascinating. I don't know. I just recently did a lesson over prayer for the class on Sunday morning, and it was, I really think, I don't know how everybody felt about the class, but I know that I walked away from the preparation experience really edified and changed, if not resolved, I feel like I have sort of, I've had this knife in my butcher block for a while, and now it's really sharp. I felt like that kind of a study really kind of helped hone in on an understanding of what I can do and what powers we have been given and what understanding that we have as a relationship with God. And even it's really hard. I would say if your profession is, dealing with really high stress stimuli and situations, you're on the road a lot, or you're dealing with people who are only talking about money, or if that's your profession or whatever it is that you're doing, you have a lot of negative stimuli. So you're almost going into the lion's den every day whenever you leave the assembly.
Yeah.
And the need for a relationship with God, kind of similar to the relationship that you seem to have with family members, which you're probably even closer now to your family members because when you're talking to them, when you call them, hey, I've got this idea, what do you think? Give me your ideas. That really solidifies your relationship with uncles, family, your dad, and that's beautiful. And I think my takeaway from my last lesson with prayer is that it's a relationship with God that you are constantly talking to one another. And I'll be the first to say that there are times where we'll come back to the assembly on Sunday morning or what have you, and I'll sit there and think, when's the last time I prayed?
Mm-hmm.
And when was the last time I thought about these nicer things where I need to change my behavior, and it just sort of that. I think that's the creep of the world where you kind of fall back into the stimuli of everybody not being God focused, and it's sort of dog eat dog. And I think the call is to be out of that world. I mean, I know it is, but the appeal of this work that we do with the podcast is to appeal to people who are just on the fence of worshiping God or understanding God or even having a relationship with God. Like, well, I don't even know who he is, but I'm searching. And we're always trying to appeal to those people of there is a better way, a healthier way, one that is not dog eat dog. It's that we all are in this together, we're lifting each other up. And that type of relationship changes a person.
Yeah.
And it's interesting whenever you've got a calling as such a young man to say, I really want to minister into this knowledge base to people who might not necessarily be focused on that. Or even people who are focused on that. It's just, their jobs aren't necessarily for ministry. They're farming or cattle ranching or whatever. So it's an interesting position. I've never been called for that. I was more interested in music and creation, like creating art and stuff like that. But most recently with the opportunities to teach, it's really edifying for the teacher because you have to get your nose in the book. You have to study. You have to ask questions about the text. Well, if I'm going to teach over 2 Corinthians, I need to kind of know what's up with 2 Corinthians. And then it's one of those things where you look down the mountain after a while and you say, oh, I really feel like I've learned a lot, or I've studied, or I feel really confident in my knowledge of, antiquity or what have you.
Yeah.
And then even then, understanding the human condition, I'll stop talking. I realize I'm talking too much. We'll cut that out.
It's very interesting. I could listen to you all day, bro.
We'll edit me out.
Can I say something about prayer real quick?
Absolutely. Go for
go
it.
ahead.
It was like 4 or 5 years ago. We were in California and was listening to a preacher talk about prayer. And he said that prayer is like spiritual oxygen. It's like the oxygen we get when we talk to God. We've got to be talking to God. I mean, how long do we think we can go without breathing? And really just the verse in James 5:16 talking about the prayer of a righteous person is powerful as it is working. Prayer is so crucial. So, that class was awesome. Love talking about prayer for sure.
Do you feel like you've grown in your faith and your relationship with God?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, getting to teach and preach, once again, like you were saying, whenever you put in the study and then you have to teach things, you're learning so much. That's one of the best ways to learn, actually. You retain, I think, I'm going to throw a statistic out there. I think you retain around 90% generally whenever of the information when you teach it. Because we can read something, we could read and listen to it at the same time. We could read, listen, and take notes, and you retain a good amount. But when you actually teach it, you retain the most, according to studies. I guess it's kind of on a personal level, but I've seen that in my life.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah.
You learn just as much just teaching it. You're regurgitating everything that you've been talking about. Proves, I know my material, or shows that you should know your material.
And especially when you're, like for me, I go over it over and over and over in my mind. I like to think about it and meditate on it a lot. And so when you're dwelling on it and just kind of sitting in it for a while, you can't help but really learn from it. So definitely certainly grown, and also grown in really God just given me confidence speaking in front of people and being comfortable up there. Yeah. So
We'll talk about this confidence for a second. It's something I've been thinking about as well. What do you think makes someone so confident?
in speaking or just in general?
In general.
Confidence. Well, really, as Christians, our confidence has to be built upon truth and upon our faith in God. Because if we build a confidence upon what we know we can do on our own abilities, I mean, it's going to be pretty faulty because we fail and our abilities just don't quite cut it. Where it says that God's power is made perfect in our weakness, something to that effect. He can use imperfect people who don't have all the perfect abilities, and he can still use them very powerfully. So our confidence comes from the ability God gives us and bestows upon us. Does that answer your question?
No, yeah, it does. And just trusting in him and relying on him and, him turning your weakness into a strength in a sense. I do feel like he uses a lot of people who, or at least me, I feel very inefficient. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know why you're using me. But yeah, in that sense, it can give you a confidence.
Do you think that it's based on the material you're talking about? Like, for instance, I was really confident talking about subject A, but boy, when subject B came along, I was nervous. I was rattling, knees were rattling. Or is it literally just time in the pulpit, time up at the podium? Is it, is it repetition?
In my experience, repetition has helped a lot. Gone over a bunch of different topics, and really none of the topics we've gone over have really caused me more nerves than the other. So for me, it's been really just getting up there and doing it repetitively. I'm sure if I were to have to talk about certain subjects, like if the elders said, hey, we want you to talk about this subject, and it was really difficult, that would probably make me nervous somewhat. But so far, what I've gotten to speak about, the topics haven't caused any anxiety or stress, really.
It was one of those things where I was considering this recently, that growth in the kingdom or personally just comes from practice in a way, if you think about it. Yeah. And then as a musician, we always have the phrase, well, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, whatever that means. But you have to put in the reps, right, to get it right. I mean, I agree. Yes, you have to practice it perfectly. But, I mean, if you're young or if you're new to the faith, or if this is all just the new world and you're just trying, you should absolutely feel confident that your brothers and sisters in Christ, the people in the assembly around you are going to be there supporting you, that there's a bit of grace, I hope, that this person is new. They haven't been preaching for 30 years. They've been preaching for 30 days or what have you. And so there's an understanding that at that point, there's probably a little bit of anxiety, a little fear, a little overcoming, right? That goes away with reps.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I was just thinking of confidence lately because I've been, studying sports. I don't know why, but I have been.
Sports ball.
I know. And basketball. And
more coffee?
And I'm thinking of, Proverbs 3:5 that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, do not lean on your own understanding. Classic verse, right? But often our own understanding is our past failures. Our understandings are our fears and our past projected in the future, and that seems to be where our insecurities come from, our lack of ability to live in the present moment, and so we tend toward failure when we focus on our understanding because that's all we understand. And so trusting in God is almost getting rid of that in a sense and not taking your failures and projecting them in the future. But realizing in this moment, I'm not going to think, so take the basketball analogy, I'm not going to think I'm going to miss this shot again because I've missed it in the past. I'm going to be confident enough to trust in my practice, trust in my abilities, that I'm going to make this shot. And for us as Christians, I'm going to trust in God's word and his knowledge, that I'm going to move forward and do the right thing here in this moment. And it's almost a spectrum when it comes to confidence, as in, look, we need to practice and we're going to perform like we practice. And then there's this success over here. The more I perform, the more successful I am in that, the confidence ends up brewing in that area somewhere. That's kind of what I've been thinking about lately. And so you bringing that up just made me think about this passage here in Proverbs 3:5.
Yeah, and going back to confidence, one of the verses that's been coming to my mind for a while now,
Yeah.
over and over, is Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God goes with you wherever you go. I mean, that idea of courage, like I spoke about earlier, is really something that I want to work on. And being strong and courageous, I think, reflects a lot of confidence. And the fear of failure, like you talked about, and fear of rejection, those two things can make confidence really hard.
Yeah.
But if we obey this, it's a command. He doesn't say, have I not suggested or have I not asked you to? But I've commanded you to be strong and courageous and to not fear, because I'm with you. So when we can put away that fear of failure and rejection, we know it's there. I mean, it's a possibility, but we don't fear it so much. We can be confident. We can be strong, courageous.
That's a really good
God's
point.
with us.
I love that passage and that idea, especially when you put it in its context. I mean, this is Joshua. It's chapter 1 of the book.
Yeah.
He's taking the reins from Moses. He's super nervous about going into another territory and having this conquest that he has to now do. And
He's just lost his mentor too.
he just lost his mentor,
Moses
right?
has just died.
And you read that passage and you wonder why it says be strong and courageous over and over and over and over again. And then throughout the book it's like, well, it seems like Joshua really needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Like he was obviously, maybe scared, and rightfully so. And it's like God's telling him over and over again, I need you to be strong and courageous.
Yeah.
That level of transition's obviously hard organically, naturally, because as you're, not to make it dark, but like when you lose loved ones who are older than you, who you've looked up to, relied on, been able to call and have long conversations with, if when they start passing away, that really takes a blow to the morale. You feel alone. You feel separated. And that connection with God that we were talking about earlier, that's so essential to help with strength and courage. But it also helps if you have an angel sitting there telling you to do it. I mean, be strong and courageous. Okay.
Sure.
But I guess we also have access to the book where we can read it ourselves, be strong and courageous, and be inspired by it.
Yeah, we still have that same inspired word telling us, be strong and courageous.
Just because it was said to Joshua doesn't mean it doesn't apply to us.
Yeah. And,
Which is why I'm working on my arc currently.
Joshua saw a lot of the failures from the Israelites too, and he could easily have projected that into his future and caused insecurities in his life, but he didn't. I mean, in some ways he did. There were some hiccups, but in many ways they were successful.
He saw a lot too. He saw Egypt.
Right.
He saw the plagues. He saw the first crossing. He experienced the first crossing. He saw Mount Sinai. He saw the golden calf. He saw all these things. He saw all of that generation die in the wilderness over 40 years. And then there he is standing at the precipice of the Jordan with this new generation. Moses is gone. What's the sister's name?
Miriam.
Is that right?
Yeah. Miriam.
Yeah, Miriam has passed. Aaron is gone. Nadab and Abihu are gone. Sort of like they've experienced a lot. And then there's Jericho. And they can see it. And it's across the Jordan, and it's this big walled city, and they know it has a reputation. There's chariots. They have chariot races on top of the walls.
Yeah.
And be strong and courageous. I'm with you, man. That gives you some fire. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, let me put my staff in the River Jordan and watch the water. It's just, that's an amazing story. It gives me confidence.
It's cool to look back a little bit further in Numbers 13 and 14, where the 12 go into the land, the promised land, and they all get to see the same things. They all get to see the strongholds and the people who are prepared for war, and they get to see the giants who these other 10 men say, we were like grasshoppers to them. But these two guys, 2 out of the 12, say, let's be of good courage. These people are bread for us. God's with us. And let's go right now and take it over. Yeah.
David said the same thing. It's like we're grasshoppers to this guy. We're nothing to this huge giant. He's who is he to blaspheme God, take up the rock.
Yeah.
He kills him with a Cephas. Petrus. That's amazing. That's such a great point. I think that whenever we're talking about being in the world and trying to inspire people, like, why is Christ the choice rather than some self-help or something like that? If you were to be able to have a conversation right now with a random stranger and they were asking you, like, why are you a Christian? Are you able to articulate that for us now? I know I put you on the spot, but for me, there's a confidence and hope. And it's for me, it's less about personal gain. It's not about that at all. It's about a community. It's about strengthening my brothers and sisters. It's about they give me confidence to be able to handle the world. And then I've also seen people try to pursue excellence and pursue what the world can give. And it always ends up in destruction. And even if you're able to obtain the whole world, like, let's say you're just the most powerful person on the planet, you've conquered the business world, you're the you're the heavyweight champion of UFC or whatever. You've just done everything and you're the champion. Then you're going to get old and you're going to die, and you might be remembered, maybe.
Yeah.
What about the 12 men who walked on the moon? Can you name even half of them? And so we will be forgotten in time.
Yeah.
But if our name's in the book of life, and we can try to bring as many people as we can with us to be saved, to have eternal life, that's an appeal.
Yeah.
A lot of people will poo-poo that idea, but especially if they're worldly. Like, what inspires you to continue to be a Christian and to grow in Christ?
Huge part of it, that's a lot to unpack. I don't know if I can speak about all of it, but a huge foundational part is truth. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Like, you're talking about people chase these things to try to find fulfillment. Well, they're chasing lies. And that's what, Eve did in the garden. And then Adam right after, they followed deception. They followed a lie. You're not going to die if you eat this fruit. And so they followed a lie. And same thing today. Satan's constantly lying to us. And a lot of times people listen to it because it can be appealing. And it can, sometimes we think it's going to actually bring fulfillment and satisfaction, get to the end of the road, and it doesn't. But truth, Jesus says he's the way to the Father. There's no other way to the Father except him. And so trying to be grounded in the truth of God's word instead of some self-help book that, once again, will get you somewhere, but it's not going to be where you're wanting to go. So truth, I think the idea of grace is huge in it as well, because so many religions are so works-based. I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and if I do it well enough, then maybe I'll earn the favor of this God or maybe our God. And then the third thing is love. Some religions, they have love involved in it, but the way that Jesus teaches love is so much different from other religions. Especially this idea of loving your enemies. Like, who's going to preach that? And Jesus preaches to love our enemies and to love everybody around us, and most importantly, to love the Lord your God with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. So I think those three things are the foundation for why I'm a Christian. It's what I would communicate is love, truth, and grace.
That is the truth. It seems is love. And that's an amazing teaching. We even quoted that on Sunday. Is in Romans it says, if your enemy is hungry, stab them in the back with a knife. Oh wait, no, it doesn't say. It says, if your enemy's hungry, feed him. Mm-hmm. If he's thirsty, give him a drink.
Yeah.
What? That's so radical if you think about it. Like, no, this person just wronged me. This person just stole something from this. It just gave me a ticket. This person just whatever. Oh, if it really comes down to it, show him kindness. Because does it matter that your stuff got stolen? Does it matter? And it's such a high level of thinking where most people are bogged down in eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Well, what is fair? Is any of this fair? You know,
Yeah.
Those are the conversations which seem to happen constantly about, well, that's not right. That's not just. And for God to say, justice is mine, I will be the judge. It's a level of humility that inspires me to continue to be a Christian, to say, okay, I actually don't have the power. And if you think about it, so if I don't have the power, I don't have the power to get revenge, or I don't have the power to get even, be just. I have the power to be merciful. That's interesting, to be merciful. A friend of mine just sat on a jury here, and they convicted this guy and gave him the minimum sentence I think he can get is 50 years. And he's 40-something. So by the time he'll be able to get out of prison, he's 90-something.
Yeah.
Over an action, over a behavior. The action wasn't based in love. It was based in emotion and hatred, hurting somebody. And they cast judgment. And whenever he was telling me about it, I said, that doesn't make me feel good at all. At all. Like, yeah, well, obviously you had to prove the guy guilty because he did it. And that's what our society does. But I would much rather there be mercy. My request to God in prayer is that, okay, if this calamity has befallen this guy and he goes to prison, that he'll open his heart to the fact that, you know what, I'm here and I'm stuck and I ain't getting out. Mm-hmm. And that there has to be a better way. And I hope that the word can reach him and that he can change. But I would rather have the things that I've done wrong to people, to God, to my fellow man. I would much rather be forgiven than to have to pay the price for it. Just because that seems more appealing. David says that the mercies of God are more infinite than man. Please do not let me fall into the hands of man.
Yeah.
End of 2 Samuel.
Well, mercy triumphs over judgment. That's James 2:13.
That's awesome. That's the truth. That's the way of God that we're talking about here. I think.
No, I think you gave a really good answer to that question, especially on the spot there. That was,
Thank you.
That was pretty good.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no. I think those three things are essentials to our faith and growing in that faith as well. Yeah. You were talking about, loving our enemies and sarcastically not stabbing them in the back. And I just got to thinking, and my mind went right to David, in the cave with Saul. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, the Old Testament does a really good job of showing us examples of people not doing what Jesus talks about in Matthew 5-7. But then sometimes it shows us really good examples of doing what Jesus talked about. And that's a good example.
And it seems almost radical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like in that particular instance.
Yes.
It's like, what are you doing, man? He's right there.
The king is right there.
The reason why you're in the cave is because he's chasing you.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's
He's
amazing.
Like, no, I'm going to love my enemies here.
And showing that not only is he the chosen of God, Saul, he was his father-in-law. It's complicated, but the thing that is taught in the New Testament, James 3, is that they're made in the image of God. Men are made in the image of God. Your enemy is your fellow man, and he's made in the image of God. And God hopes that all men will come to repentance.
Well, David's excuse, right, was, God made him king. Is
That's
that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the chosen of God. And actually, whenever Saul was mortally wounded, and he was dying on the battlefield.
Yeah.
and the flag bearer, like, he says, please kill me, like, have mercy on me, give me the death blow. And so he killed him. He obliged this flag bearer.
I think actually Saul fell on his own sword.
He did, but he was dying. And
Okay.
though there's an account. Well, we can Google it. But he did fall on his own sword.
No, I think you're right.
And then he was dying, and he said, please help me. And so this guy delivered a mortal blow and reported it to David. And he says, who are you to raise your hand against God's anointed? And he had his servants kill him in front of him, like cast judgment on him. It's like rough.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is that raising hand against a fellow man, because you and I and all of us are made in the image of God.
Yeah.
That's an important point of what we're talking about with mercy. And that when Jesus and God calls for us to love one another, that's important. And so our skin color doesn't matter. The amount of money we have in our bank account doesn't matter. The car that we drive, the clothes that we wear don't matter. What matters is that we're made in the image of God and we have to love each other. And that's the hope that God gives us.
Yeah. And another story with David really having mercy on an enemy. Absalom is causing problems. And in chapter 16, I think his name's pronounced Shimei, however you pronounce it. But he's cursing David and spitting at him, throwing dirt at him. And Abishai wants to kill this guy. He's ready to end his life. And David says, hold up, don't kill him. Shimei is an enemy. I mean, he's acting like an enemy to David, and yet David has mercy on him and doesn't have him killed. Even in the midst of all the stuff he's going through with his son trying to take over the kingdom, he's still able to retain this level head. It's quite amazing to see.
David's an interesting character. Sometimes he's super self-controlled as a brutal warrior, if you want to call him that. Other times, grab your swords.
Yep.
He insulted me. And he's an interesting cat, man.
Yeah.
Man.
Just to fill the gap really quick too, because I was interested. I couldn't remember for Saul, and it was in 1 Samuel 31. The battle pressed hard against Saul, and the archers found him, and he was badly wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor bearer, draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest the uncircumcised come and thrust me through and mistreat me. But his armor bearer would not, for he feared greatly. Therefore Saul took his own sword and fell upon it.
Okay.
So he did end up falling on his own sword, but he
didn't
asked
kill himself.
first for his armor bearer to
But
thrust
then
him.
David did kill.
I think someone came along to the battle afterwards and saw Saul dead and beheaded him, I believe, and brought his head to
If
David.
I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We don't have to.
No, we're just
I
clearing
was just
everything
curious.
up. Yeah.
I'm looking it up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, next day the Philistines came to strip the slain. They found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa, so they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent the messengers throughout the
Okay.
land of the Philistines.
Okay, well, I'm wrong. Then there was some moment where David kills this guy for touching Saul. The
He
Anointed.
does.
I just
can't
couldn't remember.
I
the part
couldn't
with
remember
Saul.
it either.
That's why I was looking it up.
Michael, you get the king. You get the trophy. You remembered more than I did. Very good. Very good. Well,
I've got one last question.
sure. What do you got?
Unless y'all got more, and then we can do the little extra mile part of it. I've been looking at your shirt this whole time. Is there a story behind it?
Well, so I make simple minimalist Christian apparel, and this is one of the designs I made. I went into the computer and got some typeface up and edited it and messed with it, and this is one of them that I made. And like I said, I like the minimalist, simple type of design. I generally am not a huge fan of the gaudy, like in-your-face type of stuff with a bunch of colors. And I really just enjoy design in a bunch of different ways because God's an amazing designer and creator. And I think he's just putting inside me a love for that, for creation and for creating and for designing. And I wanted to try to figure out a way to kind of do that and glorify God in it. And so I thought about, man, I could start putting designs on clothing. And I mean, we all have to wear clothes, so why not go out wearing clothes with a little bite of God's scripture, of God's word, a little section of it. We can't preach a sermon. I mean, this isn't a sermon, but it's a thought and an idea, and it's got the verse reference on the back, Proverbs 18:12. And so I make a bunch of different designs and sell Christian apparel to people, and hopefully God's word can just get spread through that. So
That's awesome.
That's really
That's
cool.
awesome.
And
Yeah,
for those
I like
listening,
it.
the front says humility before honor.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the verse again?
Proverbs 18:12, and it says it actually in a couple different places in Proverbs. I think Proverbs 16:18 maybe, but yeah, really cool idea. Humility's not really a virtue in the United States, I don't think, oftentimes. Just like in Roman and Greek culture, generally humility was weakness. You wanted to be proud and boisterous and powerful. This idea that Jesus brings to be meek and humble, I mean, that's not the normal way we go to as a human. We want to be proud and we want to protect ourselves. So, yeah, that idea of humility before honor, I love.
That's pretty neat. I never really thought about that too much. In American culture, for sure, we take pride in a lot of things. And I don't think social media has helped us in that way. No.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look at this thing I got. Look at my Stanley Cup. You know?
Yep.
I'm like, okay.
I found it.
You did find it.
It's 2 Samuel 1.
Tell us.
Just for clarity, we can edit this out, but a young Amalekite came to David, gave him a report. This is 2 Samuel 1. Young man who told him and said, "By chance I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and behold, Saul was leaning on his spear. Behold, the chariots and the horsemen pursued him closely. When I looked in behind him, he saw me and called to me. I said, 'Here I am.' He said to me, 'Who are you?' An Amalekite. And he said to me, 'Please stand beside me and kill me, for agony has seized me, because my life still lingers in me.'" So he had fallen on a sword, but he was still dying. My life still lingers in me. So I stood beside him and killed him, because I knew that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown which was on his head and the bracelet which was on his arm, and I brought them here to you, my lord. Then David took hold of his clothes and tore them. Also did all the men. They mourned and wept and fasted until the evening for Saul and the sun. And then David said to the young man who told him, "Where are you from?" He says, "I'm Amalekite." And he says, "How is it that you were not afraid to stretch out your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" So that goes back to what David was saying. So I don't mean to justify that I was right, but I did remember that.
Oh, I mean,
There was something like, well, he fell on his sword and killed himself, yes. But he was still alive. And then David ends up killing this poor guy for being the messenger. But David did not raise his hand against the Lord's anointed. That was the point.
Yes.
So anyway, that's good.
Very good.
And then you read 1 Chronicles 10 just now.
Maybe.
Because that was the account that they seem to be conflicting, but if you layer them, it makes
1
sense.
Samuel 31.
Okay. So 1 Samuel 31, then that's 2 Samuel 1, and then there's 1 Chronicles 10 that all talk about the death of Saul. Anyway. Blah, 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 blah. We'll edit that out. But
It has been cleared up.
I just made sure that I wasn't going insane. Because I don't want to speak falsehood, especially about the Bible. I apologize to everybody.
No one is. We're just trying to figure it out.
Well, Michael, this is the Extra Mile podcast, and what we do is we ask all of our guests a question. Jesus' instruction in the Sermon on the Mount, which wasn't called a sermon, but he was teaching on the mountain, and one of his things that he talks about is how we as Christians can really affect others around us. And the instruction is, if someone requires you to go a mile with them, go with them too. If they want the shirt on your back, give them your coat also. They slap you on the face, turn the other cheek. So the Extra Mile is the name of the podcast, because we're instructed to go the extra mile, mostly because it shows our dedication and love to other humans. So that being said, how could you instruct our listeners and us even of your opinion about how we can go the extra mile in our everyday life, in our service to God?
Okay. And that's a good question. That's a deep question.
I think one of the ideas is we ask all of our guests that, because as everybody gives an answer, we actually could get closer to an understanding of that instruction in practice.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if my answer will be very, customary and normal to what you're expecting.
Well, my
but-
answer is, and so that's, anything above that is great.
So my answer would be to take it step by step, because we can get so bogged down by seeing the mile and then the extra mile that we have to go, and we're like, man, I have to walk all of this. And so we get bogged down by fear. Man, this is going to take a long time. And what if I fail in the first mile or even in the second mile? What if I fall and fail? And like I said, this idea in this verse in Joshua 1:9 just has been changing me a lot recently. So that idea, we have this mile, and then the extra mile after that, we need to be strong and courageous as we take one step at a time. We got to take action, because we can think about taking this mile as much as we want, but if we just think about it, we're not actually walking it. We got to do, we got to act, we got to work, and we have to do it in a way that we're not so fearful, because God's with us, not fearing the failure of the mile and then fearing the failure of the second mile. And I think that's, if we can get past that fear of failure and rejection and take that walk and our walk with God seriously and in a way that we are loving Him and in a relationship with Him, then if we have that relationship, it's going to produce strength and courage. It's not something we have to try to work out ourselves, or if you work out enough or read enough or get enough money, you'll finally be strong and courageous enough. It's something that God produces in us. And so, yeah, my answer would be we've got to start taking steps. We can't just talk about or think about the miles, but we got to actually start doing it. So
That's awesome.
That's pretty good. I didn't really think about the extra mile being daunting to someone.
More than the first mile.
Yeah, right. Oh, you're asking me to go 2 miles?
That's an amazing
What in the world? Yeah. So,
Because you have to be
Step
courageous
by
to
step.
go the first mile and then go the extra mile.
and then go the extra mile.
which
Yeah.
takes even more courage.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great thought. Thank you.
That was really good. All right. Well, take that and go, Sal. If you want to know more about the Bible or you have any questions, our email is in the description below. You can DM us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're looking for a church family or you're in the Lubbock area, we invite you to come visit and hang out with us in Milwaukee. We love for you to find a church who practices the love of Christ.